After the Louisiana Purchase, the U.S. almost doubled in size. The new land the U.S. had just acquired had never been explored before. The only people assumed to be in this area were Native Americans and trading merchants. Both of these proved to be very helpful along the journey of Lewis and Clark. So to find out what was out there, Thomas Jefferson, the president at the time, sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, along with a team later named the Corps of Discovery, out to discover and map this new land. The first leg of the journey was a river that took them from St. Charles, Missouri to Yankton. During the winter of 1804 and 1805, the expedition stopped and stayed at Fort Mandan in North Dakota. There at the fort, Lewis and Clark hired interpreter Toussaint Charbonneau and his Native American wife, Sacagawea. Now able to somewhat understand future Native American encounters, and having a native who understood the land, the expedition was set for when the ice melted. After the ice melted, they started up the river again, while they sent one boat back to Missouri with the information they had already obtained. After they departed from Fort, later in the year, they came to a fork in the river, and had to make a hard decision on which river to take. Lewis, along with 3 men, went down the southern fork and scouted ahead to try and tell which path to take. He was told later by the natives when he finds the Great Falls, he will find the Rocky Mountains, which at the time was what they were looking for. They chose the southern fork, and that proved to be correct. However, navigating around the Great Falls took a lot longer than they planned. When they reached the Rocky Mountains, they realized they were in need of horses to help get their boats up and over the mountains. They were told that the Shoshone tribe, which was rich in horses, would be able to supply them with horses. However, when they got to the mountain, they hadn't made contact with the Shoshone tribe. Later that month, they came into contact with them and were able to bargain for horses. However, the price was much higher than they had paid before. They were also told of a path that led over the Rockies to the other side. This was a major help in the climbing of the mountain. After the expedition got over the mountains, the western flowing rivers helped in the speed of reaching the western coast of America. They got there and spent their winter on the shores of the Pacific Ocean in Fort Clatsop. When the winter passed, they prepared to make the journey back. The timing on when to leave was very important due to melting snow and the Missouri River freezing over. After they left the beaches, the current of the rivers proved to be too much, and they abandoned the boats about 1 month into the journey back to civilization. They were able to obtain horses from a friendly Native American tribe and continued their journey home. They came back into contact with the Nez Perce tribe and stayed with them a while the weather was harsh. When the weather cleared up, they left on their journey once again, against the suggestion of the Nez Perce. When climbing the mountain, it was still as if it was winter. They climbed the mountain on top of 10 feet of compacted snow, so tightly packed that it supported the weight of a horse. With all the snow, they couldn't recognize any of the trail, so they turned around and headed back to the Nez Perce for guidance. After instructions from the Nez Perce, they climbed the mountain once again and made it across. When they arrived on the other side, they came to Traveler's Rest. Here, Lewis and some men split off from Clark and the rest of the men to explore more of the Louisiana Purchase. Lewis and his men began to wander into Blackfeet territory, a very dangerous native tribe. They seemed friendly at first, but overnight the men didn't take any chances, so they took shifts standing guard. In the morning the men caught 2 natives trying to steal rifles, and in the struggle to stop them, 2 natives died. The men took off going as fast as they could, covering 120 miles in 24 hours. While on their way back, trying to hunt, one of Clark's men shot him in mistake of thinking he was an elk because of all of his fur clothing. It was a painful but not fatal shot, so they continued on and met up with Lewis, and then the current of the Missouri River took them home at a quick pace. After 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days from departing from St. Louis, they returned to be greeted by gunfire salutes and enthusiastic welcomes. They were told by many that everyone thought that they were dead and the expedition was a total loss. However, their return started the colonization of the western land.